was a better person than I knew I was.
Hey folks, let's spend some time with some friends up north. I'm Ben Cominos from WHBY in Appleton. Joining us from WCPT in Chicago is Patti Vasquez, and from the Minocqua Brewing Company, here's Kirk Bangstad. We've got the usual suspects from our Substack page with us, as well as a special guest or two. Wherever you are, welcome, you're up north.
Hey, hi everybody. This is going to be interesting because I have 30 seconds before we go live in Chicago. So I'm going to have to introduce us to the audience in Chicago, and then we'll get things rolling. Hey Nathan, good to see you. Hey Senator. Hey Kirk.
Hey, wonderful. So we'll let you go in, and then we'll lead me in, and then I'll introduce you.
Okay, I'm going to get the heads up from Lady B in just a moment. We are broadcasting, of course, on WCPT. So we kind of have to straddle this territory of doing the podcast and doing the live broadcast in Chicago. I can't, I'm in New Orleans, so I can't hear the station. This is a little bit unique today. All right, we're on. Thank you so much for listening and driving at home. Hi to our friends on KTNF AM 950, 1150 KKNW in Seattle, and of course, WCPT in Chicago. We are broadcasting the Up North podcast. We have an amazing show to bring you today with some great guests. Take it away, Kirk Bangstad.
All right, so this is Kirk Bangstad, and thank you so much, Patti. Patti and I are becoming a podcast team over here, along with Senator Chris Larsen, who joins us as much as he possibly can from Milwaukee, or maybe you're still in Madison. Chris is he's a senator from the Milwaukee area. And then joining us today, and then Amy's always in the background, making sure we don't screw up, because Amy Thomas is the producer of this show. She helps get our guests. And then, of course, our main guest today, who we've been talking about and trying to advertise for, is Nathan Taylor, who is the Executive Director of Public Engagement at the Election Truth Alliance, which is an organization working to expose election disinformation and protect democracy and its roots. So thank you for joining us, everybody, and especially Nathan today. Thanks, guys. So this show, Nathan, there's a reason. I mean, Patti's had you on a bunch, right? And Jerry, her producer, and I are really good friends. He delivers my beer, and he talked to me about you, and I was like, man, I probably had the same reaction that every last progressive and Democrat had when they heard that you were doing this, and you're kind of investigating election malfeasance in 2024. We're like, I don't want to be like MAGA. I don't want to start grabbing conspiracy theories out of nowhere and trying to say that the election was rigged in 2024, because I was fighting against that for 4 years, because I knew it was complete ridiculousness. And so my natural reaction was to be like, I just don't want to even talk about this. And I want to put that out there because I'm the last conspiracy theorist ever out there. I'm the last person to put a tinfoil hat on. But Jerry sent me your lawsuit. He sent me, and I read it, and then I started reading more about voting machines, and I'm like, this is worth talking about, regardless of whether or not there was malfeasance that markedly made a difference in the actual turnout or the actual election. There's a lot of shady stuff going on with voting machine companies, the people who certify those companies, and the politics behind the U.S. government who kind of runs this whole part of elections. So it's worth talking about because we have very important elections coming up, and we have to make sure they're fair and safe. And so that's kind of the lead into this. But this first segment, I just want to talk about, what your organization is and what you've done. You filed some lawsuits, and I just want to get all of that out there so we can talk about it in this first segment.
Yeah, I'll give you props for reading the lawsuit. That's a hurdle that many people haven't jumped over yet. So
we're quite litigious here at the Minocqua Brewing Company, so yeah. I'm used to reading lawsuits.
Done your homework. So yeah, my name is Nathan Taylor. I am one of the 3 executive directors of the Election Truth Alliance, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. We founded the organization just after the 24 election. My background specifically is in cybersecurity and information systems. I was a 25 Bravo computer tech specialist with the Army Guard. Got my degree in network security and information systems, worked in cybersecurity all the way up until the 24 election. And then I think many of us that never looked at elections before, right? I was never a partisan individual. I paid attention, but I wasn't, super engaged in looking at all the systems we're using and how our elections are run. After the 24 election, over the 200 bomb threats and all these other problems we started finding, I got together with like-minded individuals and we said, well, let's actually look at how our elections are being run, because there's a lot of weirdness around what happened in the 24 election. A lot of the data didn't make sense. The math wasn't mathing, as we like to say. And that really led us down the road to where we are today, where we've done investigations. We've come up with peer-reviewed methodologies to look at our elections using statistics and election forensics. We started doing on-the-ground investigations in Pennsylvania, in Florida, and other states and swing states. And as you said, we have filed our first of what will likely be a few legal actions based on the findings that we've started making public. So it's been a year of my life, and I don't think I would have ever, looking back, said I would ever be here. I never rolled out of bed and said, hey, I'm gonna investigate elections and fight for transparency, but here we are.
So Nathan, we've talked several times, and I really appreciate the work you're doing. I've mentioned the same things that Kirk has, which is I didn't want to be, I don't want to get sucked into it, but the work that you're doing is, again, so tangible, and you are bringing the proof. So tell us about the Philly lawsuit and the details involved in that.
Yeah. And I know people have asked us kind of like, what were the main 5 things that really kicked off the investigations? A lot of the problems were around Pennsylvania. A lot of the bomb threats, I think at least half of the counties in Pennsylvania on election night had bomb threats where they had to shut down polling locations, evacuate people, come in, clear them, and then bring them back in. Not only that, but multiple counties, I believe as well, 32 counties had malfunctions to their voting systems on election night as well. And in our lawsuit, we have focused 3 of those counties in the Western District of Pennsylvania. We've gathered plaintiffs there, and we investigated not only the, applying these election forensics, which we do have some graphics showing how we could look at elections and human voting behavior, but also that's where we started finding problems where one such county, Cambria County, had all of their voting systems stop working during the election day. They could not scan ballots, and they had to hand duplicate and then eventually get new ballots and print. And then there was a bunch of other problems highlighted in our lawsuit. We kind of go into all the different details. And ultimately, the concern is still, if the things that happened in the 24 election are tied to the systems, and we'll talk about the systems, then what is stopping something like that from happening again? And if it did happen in the 24 election, which a lot of people, as you said, it's been an uphill battle, just talking about all the problems around the election and if there could have been changes, because it's kind of like, as you said, the boy who cried wolf. You don't want to talk about it. You don't want to look like them. You want to be reasonable, and you want our elections to be free, fair, safe, and secure. At the end of the day, we got to go where the data tells us. And that's what this lawsuit is doing, is we're saying there are enough discrepancies around the Pennsylvania results that it warrants an investigation. We are pursuing hand counts in those counties we identified. Some of our advanced methodologies highlight, how many votes could have been impacted, whether through the machines or other problems. So that's kind of where our lawsuit takes us.
Yeah. So I hear a lot, Nathan, and what you're saying about, like, look, there's a slow toe into the water of starting to even talk about this. And I get that, right? Like, part of what the reason why Trump specifically does what he does, and the Republicans have certainly followed suit, is to accuse his opponents of what he is guilty of. I think back of like in the first debates where he was called out as being a Russian puppet, and his like, schoolyard retort was like, I'm not a puppet, you're a puppet, right? They had like their whole thing around QAnon with Pizzagate and pedophilia, and at the same time, Trump's name is all over the Epstein list. So I get, like, part of it is the insulation so that others don't make the accusations against them because they make it sound so ridiculous. So all that is a wind up to the question of like, how do you get folks to put their toe in the water when they are that skeptical, right? What is the publicly available evidence and the quick synopsis that can get somebody to be like, all right, that's really messed up. I want to hear more.
Such a good question.
Yeah. The main success we've had, I remember right after the election when we started out, the ETA has put out multiple reports. By the way, we put out reports for Pennsylvania, North Carolina, recently for Florida, Nevada, and we're working on a few other swing states, such as, your own beautiful state. And what we found is a lot of the time, a lot of people just don't even know how our systems work in the first place. As soon as you start identifying, hey, here's how it all works, and here's the vulnerabilities that could be exploited, a lot of people's eyes start to open. For example, some of the things we've dug into and started making public now is a lot of the systems we use, 70% of the US is using the same major brands. And most people don't even realize that. And that's a good stepping point to talking about, what happens if you could mess with those two major brands? Could you actually change things around?
All right, Nathan, we're going to talk about ES&S and Dominion, which has turned into Liberty Vote, next segment. So you're leading into that ahead of time. I want to go back. There's two things that, when I read your lawsuit, there's two things that popped out, and we got about a minute and a half. So the one thing is that ES&S, one of the major companies, changed the software of a lot of their voting machines in September before the election, and that was not. I'll talk about the other one in the next segment. Talk about that for the next 45 seconds or so.
Yeah. So in our Pennsylvania lawsuit, we actually do highlight that there were multiple software updates to both ES&S and Dominion voting systems in Pennsylvania and assumed across the state at large. Now, these aren't inherently malicious on their own, like you do software updates. But what was interesting is these updates were approved by ProVNV, which is one of the major companies or entities that audits our systems, one of the only few. And they marked these software updates as de minimis. They didn't have to recertify. They didn't have to test the systems. And we did flag, as we've investigated, there were some changes made with that software update that we're concerned, could have been a little strange.
Man, incredible work you guys are doing. Thank you so much again. Nathan Taylor from the Election Truth Alliance. Go to, what's the best website again? I'm trying to pull it up.
electiontruthalliance.org.
Excellent. Support the work that they're doing. And coming up in our next segment, we're going to continue our conversation, and we're going to talk about the Wisconsin connection, voting machines, power grabs, and the assault on democracy. Again, thank you so much, Nathan Taylor. We are broadcasting the Up North podcast on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal, KKNW 1150, and KTNF AM 950. Thank you to our sponsors, Source Solar, Minocqua Brewing Company, of course. Thank you to our fearless leader, Kirk Bangstad. Go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com, support our work, subscribe to our Substack, and thank you to Pride Coffee Roasters. More in a moment.
Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk & Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of the money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of progressive beer. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells progressive beer all throughout Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, and online to about 30 states. Never seen it? That's likely because we've been banned by distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy progressive beer, go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click the Retail Locations tab. That's MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Retail Locations. We get it. Your liver is under constant attack. Alcohol is a dictator that takes away your freedom. It distracts while doing its dirty work. It weakens your judicial system and governing bodies. If you give it too much power, you'll never be the same. We have the solution. 8647 THC Hop Water. 0 alcohol, 0 calories, tastes like patriotism. 8647 THC Hop Water. Liberate your liver. Buy 8647 THC Hop Water and Joint Session, our THC Orange Cooler, by going to thc.MinocquaBrewingCompany.com. That's thc.MinocquaBrewingCompany.com. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Minocqua Brewing Company, who sells progressive beer online across the country. If you like the show today, please consider buying one of our beer subscription packages for yourself or a loved one. You can subscribe to the Democrat, the Liberal, and the Progressive, which delivers four packs of beer to your door for 6 months, a year, or 2 years. To find where you can subscribe to get progressive beer delivered to your door every month, go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. That's MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. The Minocqua Brewing Company is excited to partner with Brouhaha Coffee to create woke coffee. Get woke, go broke. That's what they say, right? Au contraire, mon frère. This gourmet coffee was awarded 2025 Roast of the Year at the Coffee Break Festival in Wisconsin, and it comes in both medium and dark roasts. Support our political action and enjoy fabulous coffee at the same time. For our Up North podcast listeners, go to the MinocquaMarketplace.com, find coffee under the beverage tab, and type in Up North to get 10% off your order. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com and use the promo code Up North.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us for the Up North podcast. We are broadcasting. Well, I'm broadcasting from New Orleans. And, of course, our fearless leader, Kirk Bangstad, live from the Minocqua Brewing Taproom in Madison, Wisconsin. Take it away, Kirk.
All right. Great to have you again, Nathan. I wanted to finish the second part of my two-part question that I asked before the commercial break. The other thing about your lawsuit that really struck me as wild was, yes, there might have been a software update that's kind of scary before an election, on a voting system is kind of a black box that the average American doesn't really know anything about. That in and of itself raises questions. The thing that didn't raise any questions to me was like, these guys weren't prepared for, it seems like from your lawsuit, they weren't prepared for all of the voting systems to go kaput all at once. And so they were like throwing, emergency baskets, and people were just tossing ballots, and then they overflowed the ballots. And somehow, to me, they had to, from what I read, they had to like remark the ballots so that the voting system could take them in. And I certainly don't want an election official touching my ballot after I've already voted it and looking at what I've written and then writing it again. That seems like fraught with error. And if that guy was a Republican, he could have just changed my vote. Is it what I read, what I just said? Is that what you reported in your lawsuit?
Yeah. So we not only have a little bit of that encompassed in the lawsuit, but we've put out some Substacks talking about everything that went wrong with Cambria County on election day. And yes, they had all of their machines could not count, could not scan ballots that voters were filling out. So they stored them. And then eventually it came down from the county that they were going to hand copy them over to new printed ballots that they got, I believe, in the afternoon that were able to be detected and scanned by the systems. And then, yes, they hand duplicated a unknown amount of ballots. We don't actually have from our records requests from the county a concrete amount of ballots that they actually duplicated. Some reports, they were estimating they were expecting 35,000 ballots that they'd have to copy. Final reports were saying closer to 65,000. But then at the end of the day, and this is in our lawsuit, we're saying the final results are only accounting for closer to I believe 55,000 or so ballots. So we're getting a discrepancy there. And that's the thing you're bringing up, right, is chain of custody. How are we safeguarding that when you cast your vote, that the vote that's being counted is the vote that you cast? And that's something I think every American should be concerned about, is we want to make sure, no matter who you voted for, that your vote's being cast and counted correctly.
Got it. Okay, so the next two questions I want to ask are kind of part and parcel of the same thing. So before I didn't want to come in dumb on this because it is so fraught with potential conspiracy theory. So I read up, and
You're a better person than I am, by the way. I often come in dumb on all my topics. Go ahead.
More to learn.
I read up, and there is a Princeton professor who has been writing for like the last decade. And he is Professor Andrew Appel for the last decade. And I've read the source links. Now, the area, if you start going down some rat holes, there's so many crazy bat-s things happening. I didn't say it, Patti, so good. But it's a Princeton professor. He's written papers on this in like Wired.com. So these are not wild, dark places in the internet. And he said, for the last 10 years that, and you're a computer security guy, like the actual hardware is completely easy to kind of unpack and re-engineer. And he has his computer science kids doing it. That's the one thing. And then the second thing is, there's a lot to talk about. I don't want to waste. The second thing is the accreditation agency, which is Pro V&V. So just think about it. So as a business, I have to hire an accountant to audit me and do my taxes. That accountant has an incentive to do the taxes the way I want them to be done, because if he makes me pay too much in taxes, then I might not hire him again the next year. And so this auditing agency is paid by these two huge monopolies to audit their, to potentially not make them do another test when they do a software change, because that would take extra time and extra money and all that stuff. So can you talk about security and this accreditation agency quickly?
Yes, let's cover the second one first, because that one's very easy. We have started looking into who tests our systems, who tests the updates, who's doing these audits. And as you said, is this like an independent third party, which is what you would want, right? A bank would hire an independent third party to audit their systems. You don't check yourself. Well, during those investigations, we have found that the standard practice seems to be that the company that's, getting their software update approved, or, having a model certified, kind of gives the test to the Pro V&V or other auditing company, and they're telling them, this is what you're going to test, this is how you're going to do it. And that might be an issue as well, because if you're not checking outside of those boxes, as you said, right, I'm getting paid to test this system. If I find problems or if I don't approve it, I'm not going to get paid. So there is that, as we said, a conflict of interest in how our systems are set up currently. When it comes to the first part, multiple experts that I think, back in November, or, right after the election, multiple experts in cybersecurity and computer systems have talked about how vulnerable our election systems are. They've talked about multiple known compromises of our voting systems, such as actors going into counties. I believe there's one in Colorado and in Georgia, going in to gain illegal access to the voting systems and figure out how they work. There's been multiple documented and actual criminal people put behind bars for doing these things. So I bring that up because we know that there has been efforts to figure out how the systems work. And if you could figure out how the systems work, could you mess with things? And that's where there are multiple experts. One, as you said, is the professor that has put things out, but also some of the others. Free Speech for People has put out multiple reports looking at those systems. We've had different professors going back for a while now. I know Alex Halderman has done similar things. And ultimately what it comes down to is, as you've said, the voting systems we're using. One, they're black boxes. They're not open source. They're not publicly audited. If you know how they work, could you compromise them, and would it ever get detected? Would those vulnerabilities ever be found? Well, we don't know. That's kind of the point is we were highlighting now.
There was a point where none of us knew anything about who owned a voting machine company, any of that, until the Dominion lawsuit against Fox News and other elements of that. But I think we're all surprised to find out there are only two companies left who manufacture and control the voting machines. I'm guessing there's some sketchy stuff behind these. Are they tied to Republicans in any way?
Well,
I think I know the answer.
I'll say this. I'll say what people don't even realize is the two major systems right now, ES&S and Dominion, which spans 70% of the U.S., especially the swing states, it was broken up from Diebold, which was a larger entity. And so they split and they actually were forced to split because of some problems that came up with trust in how they were running their systems. And ES&S got some of the property and Dominion got some of it. Well, Liberty Vote now. So I think this is a problem that isn't new. This is a problem that's been happening for a while, ever since we started using for-profit, partisan, maybe not. We don't know, but we do know is we can't actually figure out who owns some of these entities. ES&S, for example, as we've investigated, it's very difficult to figure out who is bankrolling the companies and who actually sits on the board, who owns the approval process. And as you know now, Liberty Vote was Dominion has come up for some recent flags as well.
Okay, let me just say a few things, then Patty's going to take it out. So yeah, I did a little research, and McCarthy Private Equity, Nebraska company. This Nebraska company runs a very right-wing newspaper in Omaha. A lot of these folks are tied. We got the Heritage Foundation. Is one of the folks who run. There's been a lawsuit against two of the people on the board on the Heritage Foundation, or on the board of elections that were tied to the Heritage Foundation. So we're going to take a break and come back. We got to keep talking about this after this next break. We're going to bump our next guest, who is my friend Fred. So after this, we'll see you right away.
More with the Up North podcast on WCPT 820, KKNW 1150, and KTNF AM 950.
Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk & Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of our progressive t-shirts. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells t-shirts to supplement our beer sales because we've been banned by beer distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy our t-shirts, go to MinocquaMarketplace.com and go to apparel. For Up North podcast listeners, get 10% off on all of our merch by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Minocqua Marketplace, or what we like to call the Amazon for progressives. Every product sold on the Minocqua Marketplace is made by a company that's pledged to never donate money to the MAGA movement. There's over 60 companies on our marketplace, and we sell everything from nuts to detergents to doormats. Save democracy with your wallet by shopping only at MinocquaMarketplace.com. For Up North podcast listeners, save 10% on any order in the store by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth. We get it. Your liver is under constant attack. Alcohol is a dictator that takes away your freedom. It distracts while doing its dirty work. It weakens your judicial system and governing bodies. If you give it too much power, you'll never be the same. We have the solution. 8647 THC hop water. Zero alcohol, 0 calories, tastes like patriotism. 8647 THC hop water. Liberate your liver. Buy 8647 THC Hop Water and Joint Session, our THC Orange Cooler, by going to thc.minocquabrewingcompany.com. That's thc.minocquabrewingcompany.com. The Minocqua Brewing Company is excited to partner with Brouhaha Coffee to create woke coffee. Get woke, go broke. That's what they say, right? Au contraire, mon frère. This gourmet coffee was awarded 2025 Roast of the Year at the Coffee Break Festival in Wisconsin, and it comes in both medium and dark roasts. Support our political action and enjoy fabulous coffee at the same time. For our Up North podcast listeners, go to the MinocquaMarketplace.com, find coffee under the beverage tab, and type in Up North to get 10% off your order. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com and use the promo code UpNorth.
Hey, everybody. I think we're back in a few seconds. They're going to text me when we're back live on WCPT. We are broadcasting, of course, our Up North podcast. Let me see if we're on yet so I can do the official backstro. I don't know what to call it, the intro.
The backstro. Is that a new? Are we going to invent something in the entertainment industry?
The backstro. We are broadcast. Oh, I am. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us for Driving It Home with our Up North podcast. And we are heading into our next segment, continuing our conversation with Nathan Taylor from Election Truth Alliance. Kirk, take it away.
Okay, so I wanted to segue. We've got Senator Larsen here, and he's got he knows more about election voting suppression by the Republican Party of Wisconsin than anybody in this room or on this stream. So I want to talk about that. But first, can you tell us? You know, we know that 70% of all the voting machines are from two different companies. We know that there's unfortunate Republican ties to those companies, which is disconcerting if you're a progressive. You told me there's something about modems in the Wisconsin voting machines. Can you talk about that and why that might be an issue that we should look at in Wisconsin?
Well, yes and no. That is really difficult to figure out. So what we do know, Wisconsin does use as their primary voting system ES&S. And what we have found, as I said, we're still digging into Wisconsin. We do have some reports that we will make public here in the near future. But we did find is ES&S is used also in Pennsylvania, in some of these counties that we've been in, we have a lawsuit in. And we have found that a standard practice is to use precinct scanners, which is how people will scan their votes, paper ballot or not. And there'll be a cellular modem in these optical precinct scanners, and that's how they send the data to the county. And the reason why that's important is we're told time and time again by our trusted officials that our systems are not connected to the internet. How could they be vulnerable if they're not connected to the internet? And yet here we are finding that a major system, even some of the Dominion systems we found at this point do have cellular modem options. We're finding that we are using cellular modems to send and upload our data. Is that not connected to the internet? Is your phone connected to the internet?
Got it. All right. So Senator Larsen, let's move to like writ large voting suppression in Wisconsin. We know that, the fewer people vote generally, the more progressives and Democrats, or the fewer people vote, the more Republicans win. The more people that vote generally, the more Democrats and progressives win. That's what I've been told practically my whole political life. There's been voter suppression throughout Wisconsin for as long as I've been back, for the last 15 years. Can you talk a little bit about the history of what's been happening in Wisconsin in voter suppression?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's any of the tricks that are happening nationally are happening in the state. So you do have the repeated efforts to decertify past elections. There's pressure campaigns against local clerks to limit voting hours and early voting. There's the manufactured scandals around absentee ballots, limiting drop boxes. There's been the repeated efforts to remove them, and then the nefarious pleas that they are tampered with and that they should not be trusted. You've got lawsuits and legislation aimed at restricting voter access, not improving security, and that includes trying to kick people off of the voter rolls right up until Election Day. These things happen nationally. They've tried those in Wisconsin. Usually they've been successful at pushing them back. The attempted and repeated efforts for highly specific voter identification, which polls really well, right? It sounds like it makes sense. Well, you have an ID in your pocket. Why can't you use that? Well, turns out like the ID in your pocket wouldn't be allowable. So it's highly specific. There's misinformation on when to vote. There are billboards that have been put up by the Bradley Foundation to say that illegally voting is a felony offense and can result in a minimum of prison time to try and suppress people from voting. We haven't had them as much in Wisconsin, but there's bomb threats, other places that are used. Nathan mentioned some of those happening in the eastern states. And then, of course, limiting hours. The fact that we have it on a Tuesday is assumed to just be it's only when we can have elections, but even that in of itself, and then limiting the hours for early voting, restricting the last weekend before, and then of course going after Sundays, where efforts in the inner city go to try and get souls to the polls to try and limit that. That's just off the top of my head and from the list I was jotting down as we were talking about it. There's more to come, right? There's always these efforts that they're going to be trying to do. So I'm curious if from Nathan's angle of like what else he thinks is going to be coming. Because they're looking at overturning the Voting Rights Act, for that protection. And so I'm curious what things you think are coming that we can be on the lookout for.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing as well, as we've started looking at our systems and looking at the results of not only the 24 election, but since then we've been keeping an eye on, recent events. One thing that's come up is we've gotten many, potentially hundreds of thousands of voters who are saying their mail-in ballots for the 24 election, had problems. And since then, and so that's another aspect we're looking at is we're like, well, why is mail-in voting such a friction point, right? Why is there such a push to maybe stop mail-in voting? And also on top of that is there any effort to remove people from the voter rolls, based on demographics? And we've actually started making some of those findings public. In Florida, we've been on the ground in one county, St. Lucie County, and we've been working with some other entities. And we've started finding that there are strong pieces of evidence suggesting that voters are being removed by certain demographics in Florida and other places based on, if they're a certain minority, being removed potentially illegally. So these are the type of investigations we're doing as we go forward, is how could we stop that from happening again? How could you prevent people from targeting certain types of voters and stopping them from voting in the first place?
Yeah, that's an important work to do for sure. I guess as an overarching question, I mean, part of the effort by Republicans to bring in questions about about voter fraud, about the security of elections, is to just get people to throw up their arms and say, well, I'm not sure who to believe anyways. The old adage of like both sides are bad. I'm not sure who to believe. And especially here in Wisconsin, I can tell from your accent you're not from here, which is, forgivable.
I guess.
But like we also are very election experts up here in Wisconsin because they spend a fortune on us being a swing state. which means we also get the front row seat on all of this stuff. And part of the way they call these into question is to try and get people not to believe in the faith or to have faith in the election outcomes. So what advice would you give, and what are you doing to make sure that people still have faith in democracy and that their vote is going to be counted, and that you're not contributing to that effort to get people to say, well, if it's all up in the air, then I'm just not going to vote. I'm too busy anyway.
Yeah, it's been a fine line, because as we've made more of this public, that is the perception. People are like, should we still be engaged? And our answer is we should be more engaged. We should be paying more attention right now. We should, people should be showing up and being engaged and watching. One of the campaigns we're building is we want to engage voters for the midterms, independent of who you vote for, right? Nonpartisan, just, show up and vote, exercise your right. And the other aspect is we're coming up with methods and ways of looking at our elections as we go forward so that we can be confident, are those results accurate, and catch it if it's not. And that's the half of what we're doing with our reports and our analysis is, we're wanting to make sure that people have trust as we go forward, and we can make sure our systems are, improved so that they can keep going back and voting, and they know that their vote is being safeguarded as we improve. Midterms is going to be a big deal for that.
Right on.
Nathan, I really appreciate you being on, and thanks so much for this. I think we're probably going to talk again. This has sparked my interest, and this is exactly what pulls me and my super PAC into what we're doing. I just, democracy and justice are strong. So I want to segue, however, because part of democracy and justice is also suing ICE to unmask them. And my dear friend and lawyer Fred Melms was supposed to get all of this segment to talk about that, and there's a lot to talk about. So Nathan, feel free to stay on if you want to check it out, but otherwise, we're going to talk about ICE and not cybersecurity. So you feel free to go too. But thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. I'd love to, as we continue to fight this fight, I'm sure there'll be more opportunities in the future to keep talking about this. So thank you so much. I'll have to step out. So you guys have a good one. Good luck.
All right. Thanks, Nathan. See ya. Okay, Mr. Melms, you joined this. It's funny. Fred said, Kirk, I want no part of cybersecurity discussions because I'm a lawyer, and this is just not something I want to even talk about. But we got you in anyways because I said I wanted to see your face. I haven't seen you in a while. You're up north, and I'm in Madison. We filed a lawsuit you filed a lawsuit at my beckoning because ICE was doing crazy stuff. They've been doing crazy stuff in Chicago forever. We had a judge, they were in Milwaukee a lot. We got about 2 minutes before the end of this segment. Can you talk about our lawsuit, what we filed, why we filed it, and then we'll talk about some of the amendments that we think ICE is violating in the next segment.
Yeah, absolutely. So, our lawsuit is, I wouldn't call it simple, but it's not sort of particularly broad. We're really only asking for a judge to find that the policy of ICE not to identify themselves and to mask and to ensure their anonymity is unconstitutional. And we bring that suit under a few different provisions in the Constitution. I think the most interesting of which is the first, because that's the First Amendment, because that's the one that really applies most to you and you're the sole plaintiff right now. It's a violation of the petition clause, because if you don't know who the government actor is that you want to air your grievances against, you can't do so against sort of an anonymous figure in the shadows. So that really limits Kirk's ability to exercise the rights secured to him by the First Amendment. And then obviously we have some Fourth Amendment illegal seizure issues, due process issues, and then there's really a question about whether or not this is a policy that was sort of legally put into place. There's obviously a notice and comment period that needs to occur before an executive agency changes a major policy or major rule like this, and that didn't occur. ICE just one day decided that they were all going to mask up and take their insignia off. And, there was never kind of the democratic process around that decision. There's no process at all. They just started doing it. So yeah, that's kind of the broad overview of what's going on. We can certainly talk more specifics in the next segment.
Thank you, Fred. I mean, and it's horrifying, the fact that there are people out there who have the power essentially to take our life and liberty, and we aren't able to identify them. It's absolutely insane, and that's just one of the elements that's infuriating. We are broadcasting the Up North podcast live on WCPT 820, KKNW 1150, and KTNF AM 950. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us. We're going to head into the home stretch when we come back in just a moment.
Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk & Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of the money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of progressive beer. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells progressive beer all throughout Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, and online to about 30 states. Never seen it? That's likely because we've been banned by distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy progressive beer, go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click the Retail Locations tab. That's MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Retail Locations. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Minocqua Marketplace, or what we like to call the Amazon for progressives. Every product sold on the Minocqua Marketplace is made by a company that's pledged to never donate money to the MAGA movement. There's over 60 companies on our marketplace, and we sell everything from nuts to detergents to doormats. Save democracy with your wallet by shopping only at MinocquaMarketplace.com. For Up North podcast listeners, save 10% on any order in the store by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Minocqua Brewing Company, who sells progressive beer online across the country. If you like the show today, please consider buying one of our beer subscription packages for yourself or a loved one. You can subscribe to the Democrat, the Liberal, and the Progressive, which delivers four packs of beer to your door for 6 months, a year, or 2 years. To find where you can subscribe to get progressive beer delivered to your door every month, go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. That's MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk & Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of our progressive t-shirts. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells t-shirts to supplement our beer sales because we've been banned by beer distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy our t-shirts, go to MinocquaMarketplace.com and go to Apparel. For Up North podcast listeners, get 10% off on all of our merch by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth.
Thank you so much for joining us. I think that we're back live on WCPT 820, KKNW, and KTNF. I'm broadcasting from New Orleans, so I'm a little bit of fish out of water when it comes to running this show. So I appreciate everyone's patience. Thank you to our sponsors, Source Solar, Pride Coffee Roasters, and of course, Minocqua Brewing Company. Where what was that? I was so close to getting it right. Kirk Bangstad is steering this ship. Thank you so much, Kirk. Take it away.
All right. So, Fred, you kind of talked about the main gist of our lawsuit. Why, you called me last week and you said, Kirk, the next phase is coming. We probably need to bulk it up a little bit because the government's got to respond. Can you talk about the timeline and why you called me? And we need further witnesses, right? We need some help with this case, right?
Well, certainly the next, I suppose the truly next phase is going to be they're going to file a motion to dismiss, which is going to argue the legal sufficiency of our complaint, but I'm pretty confident it'll survive that. But realistically, we're going to get to a point where we need evidence. So we know this is going on. We know the military style raids are, going on around the country. We know they're wearing masks. We know the armed tough guys are pointing rifles at women and children to drag them out of homes. But we need people who can, swear to that. We need people to sign affidavits to say, hey, I saw this. I saw, the ICE officer in the mask, engaged in some form of misconduct or, just generally operating, in an excessive manner with using excessive force. So it's really, as I guess in the coming months here, we're going to have to start collecting the evidence in such a way that it's, presentable. So, certainly anyone that's seen anything and wants to. Yeah. So that's
one of the reasons I brought you on, Fred. It's like we got a pretty large reach here, and so does Patti. This is a federal lawsuit in Wisconsin, so I'm guessing we need Wisconsinites, not necessarily folks in Chicago on WCPT, but maybe those in the Kenosha. But we need Wisconsinites to be able to testify that they're seeing ICE agents or just anybody in masks, because if they're in masks and we're not wearing a badge, you don't know if they're ICE agents, and they just might be bad people, just like the guy that shot and killed the Minnesota senator. Like a while back, he impersonated a police officer. So that could still be so all you got to do, that's the kind of testimony we need. And we know that folks who are undocumented aren't going to be the ones that we want to talk to because they're scared. They don't want to come out and, put themselves in a lawsuit. But so we want, if you are someone who has witnessed something that you think was abuse, violence by anybody in a mask who was impersonating ICE, please email info@MinocquaBrewingCompany.com. It's info@MinocquaBrewingCompany.com. I will pass that email to Fred, and he will probably give you a call and talk to you. And if you decide not to testify or be a witness, that's fine. No problem. But at least we can have that conversation. So I just did that, Fred. Was that legal and good, or do you want to add anything else to that?
That was probably fine. No, I think we should. We should acknowledge that certainly, if you're undocumented, there'd be a lot of risk in getting involved in this, and we certainly don't want to place anyone at greater risk. So, for those of us who are fortunate enough to not be the targets of this of the administration right now, we really need to all kind of step up to fight back, because there are a lot of people that can't.
Are there are there social media accounts that have documented any of this? Should we keep our eyes open for someone who's videotaped something and reach out to them and say, hey, you might be helpful in this lawsuit?
Certainly. If you've got video of this, even better. If you've got pictures of this, amazing as well. Really, this is just kind of the beginning of kind of our of us building the case. So we'll talk to anybody with a story right now.
All right, folks. So remember, that's info@MinocquaBrewingCompany.com if you have any information. And as Fred mentioned, if you feel safe enough, please reach out and share what information you have.
There's tons of video. Honestly, Fred's been busy trying to, protect me from getting shut down up at Minocqua as well. So, we're just starting to dig into this case because the U.S. government had a lot of time to respond. So, yes, we'd like video. Just give us links. Fred's got paralegals that can sift through it all. So that I appreciate that. Now, Fred, I appreciate you being on, my friend. I miss you. And we're gonna let you go though, because we gotta end this show talking about some paid membership stuff.
Perfect. You two have a good night.
Legally, right. Fred must remove himself. Is that what you're saying?
No, not awesome. Legally. I don't know what's legal, not legal when it comes to Fred. I need Fred. Because
we all need a Fred. By the way,
I get sued all the time. So we got a couple minutes left, and I'm glad you and I are here, Patti. Senator Larsen had to go. His kids were getting angry. His kids were messing with him. And so this last bit here, I wanted to kind of introduce. Maybe 2 weeks ago, I sent an email out to our 170,000 people that said, we wanted to grow our Substack page. And in order to do that, we were asking for people to pay $8 a month or $80 a year to become paid subscribers. And lo and behold, we got about 200 people more. So we got about 650 paid subscribers out of about 170,000 people. And that's great because it helps us. It helps me pay Patti. I want to pay Patti more. I can't pay her that much right now because we're just a fledgling organization. But this and all the contributors we got. We're growing as a weird arse news organization. And in order to do that, we actually need to, to get a little bit more professional. So we need paid subscriptions. But what we've offered is that if you're a paid subscriber, you get a couple cooler things that the folks that aren't paid, everybody that doesn't pay will get Patti's wonderful essay every Monday, and they'll get Ben's essay on Tuesdays. And we got essays happening every day. That's always going to stay. And this podcast is always going to be free, but there's going to be some extra things. And those are all coming up. So this Friday, I'm going to be doing my traditional beer tasting that I do in the summertime all the time at 4:00. We'll talk. I'll be drinking beer. I hope you're drinking beer with me. We'll talk about the beer labels and why I made them and how they kind of fit into Wisconsin politics, because it's all related. And then I think following Monday or the week after that is Patti's going to write her article on Mocha Monday. And we're going to talk about it, like right before her radio show on WCPT. We're going to talk about what she wrote, and we'll take questions from our subscribers. And we'll kind of it's called office hours. When I was in college, we had, every time I didn't know the answer to the question, I had to go to my TF and talk about office hours. And so that's happening. Wait, December. That's office hours with Patti is December 8th. Yep. Uh-huh. And then for anybody Patti's coming to Madison along with Ben and is that next week, right, Patti?
That's next Wednesday. Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna get oysters. We're gonna do the whole thing. We always have. Well, I don't know if we're gonna have time because we have a party here, and so anybody who is a paid subscriber to our Substack page, we have a private. You can come hear the podcast from 6 to 7, and then I think we're going to give everybody a free beer or two, and then we're going to hang out with you. We want to meet you. We want to thank you for becoming part of our kind of inner circle that sustain us. And so that party is going to be, after our podcast from 7 to 9 or something. So we invite you to come that. And if you join between now and then, you are invited to that party. And obviously we're never exclusive because we're progressive, but we do need to fund ourselves. So that is our, that's kind of the next couple things, and we hope that you subscribe, and we hope to be able to give you more events later. So that's what I got, Patti.
Excellent. No, I'm really excited about that, and I really am grateful for the folks who have subscribed or read our work and support Minocqua Brewing Company on Substack and by going to the website. Someone just asked me. I traveled to New Orleans with my Minocqua Brewing T-shirt, the Yoda one that says "Rise Up, We Must." And are you still carrying that one? Because someone just texted me and asked if you have that on your website anymore. Are you looking up at the? I might have to buy one from you to bring to a listener. You got them up there? Okay.
We have them. I think we have them in the tap room in Madison. So Raygun, they're the T-shirt company is, everyone loves Raygun. They're out of Des Moines, Iowa, and they're super snarky. But they yell at me because if I have 100 T-shirt options available, it messes up their entire system. So if it's not selling much anymore, we kind of remove it from the website. I'm not sure if you can get it online anymore, but it was a good one. It was a good shirt for sure.
It's a good one. Well, you know what? I'll ask the listener what size they wear, and I'll make it their Christmas gift. So, well, thank you so much. What a great show. I actually kind of liked it. I mean, I'm not saying I have to be in New Orleans for every broadcast we do, but this was a lot of fun. Great show. I'm so glad that you had Nathan Taylor on. Of course, Senator Chris Larsen was great. Your attorney, Fred, is it Melnick? How do I say his last name?
Fred Melms.
Which
is funny because his uncle is the most MAGA attorney up north in Wisconsin. So it's Melms and Melms, and they actually go against each other in court a lot. That's
wild. Well, keep up the good fight, everybody, and thank you for joining us for the Up North podcast on Driving It Home on WCPT 820, KKNW 1150, and KTNF. I'll be back tomorrow. As Kirk mentioned, we'll be doing office hours on Monday, December 8th at 4 p.m. That'll be available on Substack, and we'll be doing the holiday party live from the Madison Taproom from Minocqua Brewing Company. Thank you, Kirk. Have a great rest of your evening. Cheers. I'm going to go tip one back in New Orleans, as you do.
All right. See you later,
Thanks,
Patti.
Everybody.
It's great
to see you. Bye.
Everybody.
Thank
Thanks
you,
so
Lady
much.
B. Take it away. Love you. Bye.
Lord, Lord, Lord. me die happy.
What the smoothest one.